Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third edition of Keys to Success from the World Federation of International Music Competitions. I'm very happy to welcome with us today cellist Jean-Guihen Queyras, an old friend, not so old friend maybe, wonderful cellist, very different in a way to the two pianists that we were showcasing in the last two meetings. Those were young artists who had just won a major prize. For Jean-Guihen, competitions have maybe a little bit different meaning, and I very much look forward to explore that in today's conversation. I would like to begin with a look back, and actually, because we're both cellists, or I used to be a cellist, I would like to just tell the story how we met. I was the general manager, the intendant of the Chongyeong International Music Festival, and Jean-Guihen played there twice, once in 2017 in a very special solo recital with an incredible program of Bach, of Isang-yun, and of Kodai. And then 2 years later, in 2019, you played with Ensemble Resonance in that same concert hall in Korea. And I got to see two completely different sides of your music, of your artistry, which was really fascinating. And I felt really bad that in my very, very first job, when I started working for Sonja Simmenauer, which of course is your agent as well, back in 2001, she had always asked me, had always pushed me to invite you for concerts, and I probably couldn't pronounce your name right, or something was wrong, and it somehow never happened until 2017 when you finally came to Korea and we met. So after all this, I'm so happy to welcome you here. And yeah, let's begin and look back a little bit at your background and where you came from, and how your career, how your life as an artist started. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the early days, about, it's so interesting when you look at your biography, you see you were born in Canada, you went to Algeria, I understand, then you went to France. How did you become a cellist? How did this all work out in this ever-traveling background?
Yes, so hello, Florian. Thank you for having me here. Hello, everybody. Nice to be back on IDAGIO. Quite some time after the last episode of my Bach series of the workshops I did on this same platform, and which maybe we'll talk later about this, about what happened in the past years for everybody in the pandemic, and how this workshop series became to be something very important for me. Now, about your question. So, well, first I want to start with this, Florian. I want to start by saying that when you contacted me, and I told this to you as well, I was very surprised that you contacted me, because I told you, if there is a guy who didn't have a sort of shooting career thanks to a big competition, thanks to winning a big competition, it's me. But I also told you, and we will probably talk about this, that that international competitions did play an important part for me. When just by being there, by participating, by meeting others, by preparing for them. And I'm sure we'll get to talk about this. So about your question, how it all started, yes. I started when I was age 9, after traveling a bit around already around the continents, because for family reasons. As you said, Canada, Algeria, and then when I was in south of France, that's where I started to play the cello. And then it went quite quickly when it was clear that I had the talent. Then pretty quickly I dedicated enough time to the music, and when I was 13 already, I had to go to Lyon, to the Conservatoire Supérieur, to study with Riem, and I was there for 4 years, being half the time there, half the time in south of France with my parents, because it was important to keep a link with home. And then when I think, of course, with the perspective, you had two very young guests apparently in your last episodes, and now you decided to have an old guest in your show. And thanks to my advanced age now, looking back, I think, oh my God, how quickly it went between starting playing the cello at 9, being with 13 already at the Conservatoire Supérieur, and then actually having my first international competition 5 years later when I was 18, when I went to the Rostropovich competition in Paris. But maybe I'll let you take over from there, what you want to talk about at this point.
Yes, actually, I'm interested in this conservatory in Lyon. When you start in a conservatory with 13, that is basically instead of regular high school, you already become a real student, or it's kind of a mix, or you were a really young student among them.
Yes, so that thank God progress has been made now, and everywhere, including in France, you have this program that enable early talents to be at school while getting what they can get from the Conservatoire Supérieur, from this high level education at the instrument and everything. So,
but the other students around you are all much older than.
Yeah. So back then there was not this sort of special thing. So it was a very strange thing that in a way doesn't make sense. As you said, when I was 13, I became an orderly, a proper student among students who were rather between 18 and 22, 23, 24. But it was funny. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because also the program there was very dense, very full. We had a lot so I immediately plunged into art history, music history, choir singing, harmony analysis, of course, then all the things on the instrument, and so my program was very full and was actually very enriching on all accounts. So I'm very grateful I had this chance.
And then your teacher sent you to Paris to play in the Rostropovich competition.
Well, no, when I was 17 already, I had finished these studies there. So the question was what to do after that. And thank God I had my chamber music teacher in Lyon. His name is Alain Meunier, cellist. And he advised me, he said, don't go to Paris to further your studies. You need to go to Germany. You need to get you need to get some fresh air. You need another way to look at music, and Germany is the right place. So I ended up in Freiburg, where I am now today. And when I was 17, and that's while I was studying in Freiburg at the conservatory where I now teach, that I decided to take a shot at the Rostropovich competition a year later when I was 18 years old. Yes.
What's your memories from that time? It was really one of the major competitions, and Slava was still the chair of the jury, of course, at the time, along with some amazing other personalities. You have any memories from that first visit of a major competition?
Yeah, it was life-changing. It was life-changing in many aspects, and of course, first and foremost, because of the crazily charismatic personality of Rostropovich. And I remember every detail of this experience. First, there are some anecdotic things that it was it was not the first edition, but at that time, there was still this idea that whoever wanted to apply could apply. So there were no first rounds with the video or things like that. You didn't get invited to play. Who wanted to apply would apply. So in the first round, we were more than 200. And I remember it was totally crazy, these lines of cellists. and playing. Sometimes your first one would be at 11 in the evening, and I don't want to know how the jury must have felt. They heard the same thing more than 200 times. Anyway, and then in the second round we were 25, I think, or something like that, or 20, down to 24. But what I will never forget, of course, is we were in this Salle des Pas Perdus in Salle Pleyel, where the whole competition was taking place, and under this sort of cupola where the sound was very bad, and we are all waiting, and then suddenly there is this relatively little man coming. Rostropovich arrives, and it was suddenly it gets quiet in the room, and then all the focus is there, on this incredibly magnetic personality, and it was amazing. And when you would go in the first round, you wouldn't see really the jury, but the second round, I remember, the jury was really quite close, and Rostropovich was at the center, so you would sit down and you would really play for Rostropovich, and this as itself was already life-changing. And then I say this because it didn't change anything to the fact that at that time they thought I was not ripe enough to go to the finals. But when I finished the second round, it finished. We all had to play Elfentanz by Popper, this very virtuous piece, and that went quite well, I must say. And so I finished by Elfentanz, and Rostropovich, he immediately said, "Bravo!" At the end of the piece, like sort of expressing that he was very happy with that, and that's all these little details you don't forget. And then in this competition, I got this. They gave me the special prize of the best young competitor, which of course is funny because I was already 18, and I'm sure amongst your first prize winners of huge competitions, you have some of them who win the Chopin competition, the Queen Elizabeth, and they are 17 or they are 18. But anyway, they decided, and I was very lucky because this prize, it was a special prize. It was a bow by Lamy that done in the ceremony at the end of the competition that Rostropovich handed over to me. And so, yes, of course, I remember all this. And this led then to an invitation to play in a masterclass for him, also in Paris a few months later. So this was a very important experience. Mm.
I wouldn't say that that our prize winners are usually at 18, especially in the major competitions. It's rather exceptional if you have somebody who is, I mean, there are some 16, 7-year-olds, but very often juries think twice and say, okay, this person has a longer, a great potential, a longer career ahead. So it doesn't have to win first prize yet, because there are certain things that are not ready yet. And somebody older who is 25 is more refined, has already more experience and everything. But just to get back to that Popper, so that was the key piece in that competition for you. You just recorded that with your partner in crime, Tarot, no, on one of your last CDs.
Oh yes, it's true. Yeah, in the Complice CD. Yes, yes, it was one of the 4 pieces we had to play in this second round. I would say it was very well made. This program for second round, that was the virtuoso piece that we would finish with, and before that the other extreme, because Rostropovich liked these extremes. We had to play the Louange à l'éternité de Jésus from the Messiaen Quartet, this extremely slow phrase, to see control of the bow. And before that, Debussy Sonata. Suddenly, I'm not entirely sure if it was the whole thing or not. And first movement of Beethoven A major.
So that was all in the second round.
Yeah. And
he asked you to repeat the Popper after you were finished.
No. He just shouted bravo. Just expressed his enthusiasm. So it was just a nice thing to have your idol expressing that he was happy with what he heard.
It's very interesting to have that in a competition, to get such an immediate reaction from the jury.
Yeah, good point. I think that these times have changed. Nowadays, that would be definitely not politically correct. back then, you know, this was the Rostropovich competition, and he would just like express what he would think, and of course he would have a big say in the decisions made. I don't think there was anything like secret ballots and things like this. It was all discussion, and he would make sure that things go in the right direction. But these were totally different times.
So he would also give you a straight comment after you're playing to other people.
Yes, we could go and talk to him. And but to finish about this feedback from Rostropovich, altogether, I would rather say that it was this master class that I had, you know, where, in Paris again about 6 months later, which was organized also by the sort of the same Concours de la Ville de Paris, and it was, you know, public masterclass, and because it was Rostropovich, it was of course totally sold out and full and everything. And I played second movement of Prokofiev Sinfonia Concertante, and there I got a feedback which I will never forget, because so his whole point, which I've seen then later, he did a lot in many master classes. It was his mantra, and he was absolutely right. There is nothing to say about that. It's always be aware of, whatever you play, you have to be aware of the whole piece. I mean, of the whole of everything. In this case, Sinfonia Concertante Prokofiev, the whole orchestra, what's happening at which moment, what are the harmonies, and you will play your part in a meaningful way. I mean, in a way that makes sense only if you relate to this whole. If you just play the printed music and the notes that are printed there, that's not it. You are not yet at all making sense. You are just playing notes. And to make sure that these notes make sense, you can't just rely on, oh, my intuition. You have to have the whole picture. And he gave me a nice slap at the end of the master class in front of everybody, but that I had to laugh myself, and the whole audience was laughing. So it was not that was traumatizing, but a real sort of little kick in the ass, excuse me, because, and then he said, you know, to finish, you know, that his last phrase was, well, you have everything to become a great musician, but if you just go on like this, I cannot promise anything. So, and you know, and now I see, you know, in my teaching here in Freiburg, I am constantly talking about, not about Rostropovich, but about this importance. This morning I was teaching, although that's another variation of it, but I was teaching prelude from the second suite by Bach to one of my students. And again, yet again, but like many times before, I told him, now it's really getting so good. He's, you know, in his last semester, and he plays beautifully. It's really good. But I told him, but still there are some times where I can tell you don't relate to the general bass. And in these moments, what you say is, it's beautiful, but it doesn't make sense. It's like if I would repeat some a sentence in a foreign language, which I don't know, and I don't know the grammatic, I just repeat it, but people will hear that I don't know how this grammatic is constructed, and that I'm just saying words. So, and then it doesn't make sense. But anyways, that just to say about a feedback, a life-changing feedback that came to me from one of the great masters of that time, thanks to an international competition.
Mm-hmm. And yet you went back there 4 years later to win another special prize at the Rostropovich Cup for exactly the same Messiaen that you already played in 86 when you went for the first time, right?
Ah, was it the Messiaen? Did we play? Yes, I remember. Oh, you're right. You're right. Again, we have to play the Messiaen. Yes, you're right. Absolutely. Yes. So, and which shows two examples of my not being in, you know, in the last squadra, Erstsfighter Dritter Prize, first, second, third prize, and yes, and yet being a happy musician, whatever that means.
But there was no feedback after the second time you went there?
Yes, there was, of course, but it was less life-changing and less because of course it was 4 years later.
I see. But in between, at least once you went into the mantra of first, second, third, and you won third prize in Munich. That was also, I think, in 86. And it shows, for me, it shows so clearly that when you look at these rankings, sometimes people win first prize and you never hear of them ever again. And then others, they win a lower prize, even fourth or fifth prize, and they have an incredible international career. And I always wonder what that competition gives them, or what it actually did to their career and for their personality. Did it make any difference? Was it just a one-time tryout, some competition? Do you have memories of Munich, or do you think it actually gave you something that really helped you and furthered your career? Yes,
so it was a very important experience as well, Munich, because, well, I'll tell you what, because it was the very, very, very first time in my life that I played with orchestra. I was a latecomer. So there are some young celllists that have experience with amateur orchestras and things, and I didn't. So the very first time I sat down in front of an orchestra for rehearsal of a concerto was Haydn D major, which was in the final of the competition, and to play Haydn with orchestra, I heard this tutti being played by the BRSO orchestra, by the Bayerische Rundfunk Orchestra. So it was, in a way, I am grateful it happened that way, because so I immediately, the first time I heard again the notes played by an orchestra with me as a soloist, it was just like the absolute dream, highest level possible. And I will never, of course, that's also a life-changing moment. I will never forget this sound of the Bayerische Rundfunk Orchestra starting to play Haydn D major. This sort of suave, beautiful texture of their sound. And since then, I'm absolutely in love with the sound of this orchestra. And each time I go back to play with them, I can't wait. So that's one thing. The other thing that also happened thanks to this competition, there was in the gala concert at the end, because I had only third prize, I didn't play. There was one concert with orchestra for the first and second prize, and I was only third prize, so I didn't. They said, "No, we're sorry, you're not going to play with orchestra." I said, "That's fine." And then they said, "Actually, we would like you to play this piece you played in the third round, this Trois Strophes by Dutilleux, because we were very impressed by the piece, and we thought you played this really well." So they asked me to play Dutilleux Trois Strophes. So, and it was live on radio and live on the European radio network. And I played this Dutilleux, and that, playing this music, which at that time, now, thank God, it's in the repertoire, I think, of every young cellist. And Dutilleux, as his concerto, as well as this Trois Strophes, have entered the cello repertoire, and they are classics, basically. But at that time, it was not the case yet. Not many people would play them. And to play this music live on radio for all Europe, I could call my friends in France and tell them to listen and everything. So it was really and in this beautiful Hercules salle, and somehow it's such a strong music, and I really connected with this music very strongly. It's true. And somehow it marked the people were quite taken by the music, and it was a big success. And what it brought, and that's the point I wanted to make, is that a few months or weeks or months later, this I'm not sure about the timing because it's a very long time ago, I received a card, a postcard. I mean, in an envelope, so a letter, you know, but a little card written on both sides by Henri Dutilleux, and he writes to me. I was by then 19 years old, you know. Cher Jean-Guihen Queyras, you know, I hear that you play, of course in French, as you can imagine, but I hear that you have been playing my music. I hear from several accounts that you have been playing my music at different places and defending my music, and I would like to thank you for that. and which, first of all, showed what a wonderful personality Dutilleux was, in his generosity, that he would write to a 19-year-old guy playing his music to thank him for playing it. And later on, I would have many chances to meet him, to play for him, to work with him. Also, when I recorded his concerto, and I would see what a generous, wonderful man he was. But also, you know, that let's say that contributed to my passionately entering with full passion, yes, the world of playing the music of today, of living composers. And I think that's one of the elements that motivated me to then 2 years later to enter, or 3 years later actually, to enter the Ensemble Intercontemporain and start working with Boulez, and start my career in an ensemble dedicated to new music. And all this happened actually, if you look at it, thanks to my experience at the ARD Wettbewerb.
That's a wonderful story. It gives a completely different meaning to competitions, because it's so far away from the concept that you go and you earn some money and maybe you get a few concerts later. But these are incredible memories. I can't believe you never played with orchestra. You never played with a school orchestra even before that? No.
No, because somehow the possibilities in Lyon were very limited, in Freiburg as well, and in Lyon probably I was the youngest. They said, oh, he has time, you know, so if somebody could play with the orchestra, it was the older ones, and you know, so it's yeah, I know it's crazy, but yeah.
Incredible. And you tell these stories to your students when you send them to competitions?
So when I encourage them to enter a competition or something, I certainly mention my experience, which is, but I think I'm sure like everybody agrees with that nowadays. But there is the really nice aspect of competitions is meeting a lot of other players, in this case, other cellists of your generation, and you hear what is being done there. There, people come from many horizons to these great competitions, and you hear these different aesthetics, and you share. So that's a wonderful thing. That's where I met some of the colleagues of my generation, and we are still in touch nowadays, and it's wonderful. And so Gustav Rivinius, for example, he's the one who won a second prize in we were both at the Rostropovich and at the Munich competition together. I mean, except he would be in the final both times, you know.
And Michal Kanka was there as well.
And Michal Kanka won also a second prize ex aequo with Gustav Rivenius in Munich. So, and whenever we meet, you know, it's like we have a shared experience. So that's the one very good aspect. The other very nice aspect is prepare a rich program that is a large spectrum of the repertoire of our instrument. And then, you know, the thing with the prizes, with winning, I would say it actually, there is a way to go to competition where either you win or you win. I think that can be a sort of only winning experience, because either indeed you happen to be in a streak where for some reason, and because aesthetically you are lucky that the jury likes what you do, because it doesn't have to be the case. And if it's the case, it's fantastic. And if it's not the case, you know, you stay there, even though you get kicked out in the second round, which can happen to wonderful musicians, to wonderful cellists. And then I tell them, stay there, listen to the other guys, and yet don't, you know, because you didn't come any further, do not deny what you did. Do not because it will always be a question of taste and a question of so it's really, if it happened, if you get through, it's great. If you don't, it's also great, because you just listen, you still prepared your program and everything. And yeah, I think that's the way. One other thing that I insist when I prepare my students for competitions is do not prepare. I'm very quite convinced about this. Do not fit your interpretation in order to have more chance to win, in order to fit what you think is expected in a competition. Really go into the piece, the piece that you're playing, the language of this composer, relate to this language, bring what only you is, what are you going to propose when you play Bach, when you play Dutilleux, when you play a young composer 20 years old of today. You know, what can you really propose and bring that was never brought before? And if it's a good jury, they will hear that, and they will say, oh, there is something that is proposed to us there. And I think you have at least as good a chance to be successful as if you try to format your playing into what is expected in order to win. For this, I'm quite convinced. And that in that way, then it can be really a very positive experience, whatever the result.
In terms of mental preparation, stage fright, nervousness, do you think competitions are different from regular, normal concerts? Do they demand more, or should they not?
No, I'm sure. I think they do and they don't. So it's obviously different, because maybe depends which competition, but for some competitions you'll be many people in one room warming up, and then they call your number and you have to get there and play. So it's, of course, it's not the same as if you have your dressing room for yourself and you can really, you know, meditate or so. So it might be a more extreme experience in that way. What I think is similar is that I think what's important, and that's something that stays challenging through your whole life whenever you go on stage, it's to indeed have this mental preparation that brings you into the right mindset, which is, it's not now about proving that I'm good enough for what is expected from me, which is for sure something that you might tend to think when you're in a competition, but I can promise you that's going to happen to follow you also when you go on stage later. And particularly when you play in cello festivals, you know, at the Cello Biennale in Amsterdam, and you have all these colleagues, you know, sitting in the first row there, and you know there is, you know, all these great cellists sitting in the hall, and oh my God, what are they going to say about my dear? So and to really put this aside and say, now, wow, let's say, no idea, Schumann concerto. What a story is going to unfold now. You know, what this music, what a gift this music is to the world, from the first to the last note. These masterworks that we play, why are they masterworks? They are masterworks because each of them is an urgent message from an incredibly sensitive human being, who has on top of that an incredible intelligent and understanding of the world. But this human being is communicating incredibly personal things that have to do with senses and with our psychology, and it's going to communicate with the people. With you as a player, you have to relate to this like crazy, and then with the people who listen. So that's and if you a way to put this more simply is the trick that Yo-Yo Ma is saying, that, you know, when he was asked about this, you know, how do you get into the right mindset? So he, for example, says when he goes on stage, he will look in the audience for a person, a face where he has the feeling this person really came to the concert to experience music, because, you know, maybe she saved this person or saved money a month long to buy a ticket to experience music for a moment, and then you play for this person, and that's going to be very helpful to put you into the right priority and say, so in my case, for sure, there is definitely the acceptance that I am imperfect, that I'm not going to look for perfection. I'm going to look for to really experience whatever I play from the first to the last note, and to be true to it as much as I can from the beginning to the end. Yes, and then there is the trick that I give to my students, and I'm happy to give it here, which is actually a very simple psychological trick. We all have one of the dangers in competitions or in concert is when you start playing and you're not, you know, it's not really sounding the way you want. It's not really that slide that you had been practicing didn't go the way you want. You go into this spiral where you start criticizing yourself, and that's where that goes wrong, and that's really a spiral that can be done. So there is this little exercise. When you are backstage, before you go on stage, leave your über ich in German, sur moi. I don't know how you say it in English.
Super ego over. I don't know.
Yes. So your self-critic self. Yeah, yes. We need it. Some people have it more than others. Some people don't have it enough, to be quite frank. But if you have one that is very active, it's good because that helps you to progress in life. But from the moment you enter the stage, your self-critic self stays backstage. Try this trick. It's a very nice trick. You go on stage, you forgive yourself everything. Never start bashing yourself for not doing the things the way you ambitioned or wanted. For the time of the concert, the time of the performance in a competition, absolutely forgive yourself everything. It's only about trying the best you can.
That's a wonderful way to say it. Yeah. And only after you go back after the performance, you meet yourself again backstage.
Then you can really say, "Oh my God, that was really shitty."
Well, I think we're already out of time. It's a pity because I have a lot more questions. I was going to talk about completely different things too. But it's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much. And I hope we'll meet sometime again soon, somewhere in the world. I'm sure you have big plans coming up now that travel is possible again. Thank you, Jean-Guihen. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. I hope to see you again on 18th May. That time we'll be speaking to Bomsori Kim, violinist, and looking forward to see you again. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Florian. Thank you, everybody.